Discipline. Well, discipline goes two ways. There's something called policing, meaning you go fast and I'll give you a ticket. And there's something called I go slow according to the speed limits, because that speed limits was designed so I be safe. And I don't hurt myself, I don't hurt others. So if I'm believing that self-discipline, that I want to drive safely to protect myself, is one way. If I'm driving because I'm afraid of the police, any minute there's no police, I'm going to go fast. And that goes, by the way, the same in an organization, a country. If we're going to police everything, by the way, people will always find a way to cheat. Because there's no belief in there. It's just that no self-discipline. Self-discipline is something, by the way, can come all the way into schools. We had, kids in this country, we teach them when they cross the road, they have to stop and wait for the green light. Now, most kids, like you put them in cars, they want their seat. They learned how to do that, right? They don't do it because they're afraid of the police. They don't even know what the police means. But they do it because they learned it and they know it's safe for them. That's the kind of thing that we aspire to have. It's self-discipline, not policing. I know many of you do this today, and it's basically called pay it forward, and a sense of responsibility. I put only these 3 organizations here, but I know there are hundreds, maybe thousands of other organizations that do something similar. The Smile Train is basically an organization that works with kids in developing countries with disease. I forgot the name of the disease, and that disease basically where there's a deformation of the mouth, where they cannot eat, the food would not stay in their mouths. Cliff balance, thank you very much. And you can imagine the stigma. In Africa, actually, they call them the devil. And imagine a little kid with that stigma going in their life. They cannot talk properly, they cannot eat, and then the image that the other kids making fun of them. So what they have done, they said, for only $250, that's it. For $250, you can have the surgery, and that kid basically will have their life back. They have their self-esteem back, and they can run their lives in a normal way. $250. This organization came in out of charity, and they're doing that for kids in Africa and around the world. Similarly, the Arvind organization, it deals with basically blindness and sight problems in poor communities in India and other places. And the same thing, they basically started as a charity looking at people in diseased, poor neighborhoods, and they created basically this clinic out of charity to help. You cannot pay, you don't have to pay, you get the treatment. And you've seen the video earlier from the Ummah clinic where you can walk in and get a treatment, you don't have to pay if you don't have the money. You can visit these sites, and they're very inspiring. Together for the long term and teamwork. If I look at the human pyramid, this thing, and I think about it in terms of that person at the top, of course, I mean, it's the leader right up there. But imagine if one of the people right at the bottom don't do their job. I think the one at the top would be hurt more. Point is, every single person in that pyramid is needed as much as the next person. If I look in a surgery room, and forgive me for my ignorance here, but before you start your surgery, somebody called a janitor will walk in and gonna clean that room for you. That's pretty much like at the bottom of your organization. Now imagine if that janitor doesn't do their job, doesn't clean that room properly, or the person who ran the autoclave did not sanitize the equipment properly. You, the best surgeon in the world, gonna kill that patient. Guaranteed. Yes, Mahdi, I see you. Yeah. Point is, everybody has a different job. And not everybody's paid similarly because of the responsibility is different. But doesn't take away the fact that that janitor is as important for the safety of the patient as the most brilliant surgeon out there. And that goes back to teamwork. Many of you, and I know this for a fact, that when you go into your operation room, you're probably thinking, who is the nurse that's going to be next to me, and who's the anesthesiologist that I'm going to bring in there, and you don't take anybody. I don't think you take anybody. You take those who you trust, they have the capability, and you depend on them to make you successful. Bottom line is, in any organization, not everybody is going to be the leader, Not everybody is going to be the top of that organization, but everyone is important. Many of you use stickies. They're all over the place. These are like the 3M pasted notes. That came out of failure. In 3M, the company, I mean, they are about glue. They make glue. And one of their scientists basically made a mistake and made a glue that doesn't stick. And I know in many other places, you fire that scientist that didn't do the good job, and you throw that batch of bad glue away, and you move on with your life and continue making glue that sticks. They took that and they thought about it and say, what could we do with that? And out of failure, create a multi-billion business. Multi-billion business out of failure. Again, failures can lead to a lot. There's an example, I get it from a book I read quite a while ago. It's called The Silver Bullet. This is IBM when they were working on the early PC days. And one of the executive there was doing some work and created something and created like a huge mistake that costed actually IBM multi-million dollars in losses. And there was a big conference at the time, and the media were asking the head of the company, and they said, what are you going to do to this that created this problem? Are you going to fire this person? And he said, are you kidding me? I said, I paid this millions of dollars to train him. We don't learn from our successes, by the way. We never learn from our successes. We only learn from our failures. Success, we celebrate and walk away. A failure, we think hard because we don't want to repeat it because it is painful, and that's where we learn. Failure, though, is not something you do haphazardly. You don't just keep failing and failing. I look at the mountain climbing. I mean, you look at this view here and you say, oh, these people are crazy. They're not. They're very well trained. They go to a very rigorous exercise. They have all the tools. They have the harnesses. And yes, what they do is very risky, but it's managed risk. They know what they're doing. And they take good care not to get hurt, although sometimes they do get hurt. Point is, you manage the risk. I'm going to switch a little bit. I think I gave you maybe a few points about what it takes and what it means to be a nation. But now I'm going to basically switch to look at the governing body. We have NTC, we're aspiring to have a new government in the near future. And what is government for? They're very simple things, and we'd hope that in future government of Libya doesn't get basically, another government like we had the last 42 years. And it's very simple. They need to put a guiding principles. We got to sit here and say, who are we? What is our identity? What are our values? And what are our guiding principles? What are the rules we're going to be living by? Are we going to live by trust, dignity, and respect? Are we going to live by, what? We have to figure this out. Right now, we have to figure this out. Second, you can't create that value and just sit back. People, I know for myself, if I don't know where I'm going, I am not inspired. I need to be energized. I need somebody to tell me, we want to be this in 50 years from now, in 20 years from now. I do this with my own team. I put a vision for them and I say, I want you now to figure out how we get to this. And the bottom line, as a country or individual, you've got to set that vision. And the vision has to be exciting and inspirational. When John F. Kennedy, said, I'm going to put a man on the moon in 10 years, excited the nation. And everybody was working hard. He didn't know how to get there, and probably had no idea that we could actually do it. But at the end of the day, set that vision, inspired the nation, created the energy, and everybody pulled together now and started working, and they did it. And that goes back setting the aspiration. And the last one, funding initiatives. We need education, we need health services, we need hospitals and things like that. And those initiatives need to be funded. There's a long-term research need to be done. There's some foundation that need to be put in place. And that is not, businesses can create a lot of this. But at the end of the day, the overall infrastructure, the social systems in the country have to be funded somehow. And I say, yes, I think these funding should be by the government. Government don't run businesses. If you look at Libya today, by the way, the government run all the businesses. From telecommunication to even bakeries and you name it. They don't know how to run businesses. They're not in the job, and that's not their job anyway. So if they stick to those simple principles, I think we will have a better position. Now, what I did, as I was thinking about that and how to simplify, I was reading an article, this is from last month, Science Magazine, and they were talking about Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics. Anyone knows about Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics? I didn't read about it. But these laws were created in 1942, long time ago. And sometimes we think 1942 we didn't have computers and we didn't have the, but yet in 1942, Isaac Asimov started thinking about if we're going to have, because he was thinking futuristically, if we're going to have robots in the future, how do we govern the rule of, how do we make the robots work properly? And it's really interesting because if you think today, do you know we had a crash in the stock market not too long ago? And do you know why the stock market crashed? Because the traders put that information in the computer and they told the computer, if the price of this goes up and this price of goes down and this country default and this happens, they put that algorithm, and out of the algorithm said, if that this, you sell, you buy. And guess what? The computer, of course, being a good, obedient person, did exactly what it did. And then he looked at all what's going on, and they were like, Europe, there are some problems, and the Middle East, there are some other problems, and went and sold everything and crashed the market. What are the laws that you're going to put to this computer to govern that doesn't make those kind of mistakes? He was thinking about that in 1942. So now, I'm not going to read you the laws of Isaac Asimov, but I brought the magazine with me. If you are interested, you can make copies. But I took those laws and I said, because I'm living now the tragedies that are going on in Libya. So I took these laws and I rewritten these laws. I rewritten these laws based on what's going on in Libya, and I would like to share that with you. So, the three laws, Isaac Asimov, these are not Isaac Asimov's, these are my translation. So the three laws of robotics, I translate them into the role of the military in a country. So I said, law number one, the military may not injure its citizens through inaction or allow the citizens to come to harm. Now think about this statement for a second. In Egypt, in Tahrir Square, when the revolution started, the military was there. It did not attack the people, thank God. But guess what happened? They were watching. And they had watched the security forces coming on camels and horses, beating people and arresting people. Didn't do anything. That, according to this law, the military must be trained not to stand by, watch citizens being harmed and being inactive.